Namaskar, hello and welcome viewers. You're watching this special presentation of Sunset TV, Bills and Acts, where we analyze bills that impact you, acts that empower you and programs that matter to you. I'm your host Kriti Mishra and today the spotlight is on the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Before the detailed analysis, let's take a look at the highlights. The Act provides special procedures to deal with terrorist activities, among other things. The Act defines terrorist acts to include acts committed within the scope of any of the treaties listed in the schedule to the Act. The amendment gives powers to the DGNIA to attach properties acquired from proceeds of terrorism. So why are we discussing this Act today? Well, the High Court of Karnataka has upheld the recent ban imposed on the Popular Front of India and stated that the centre has the power under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act to ban an organisation with immediate effect. The UAPA was originally passed in 1967. It is an upgrade on the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act of TADA that lapsed in 1995 and the Prevention of Terrorism Act, POTA, repealed in 2004. The Amendment Act of 2019 additionally empowers the government to designate individuals as terrorists on the same grounds. The government has maintained that terrorist acts are committed not by organizations but by individuals. Declaring an organization as a terrorist organization will not stop the individuals behind it. Not designating individuals as terrorists would give them an opportunity to circumvent the law and they would simply gather under a different name and keep up their terror activities. And to analyze the impact of the Act, I'm joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us in the studio, Mr. Rakesh Sinha, Member Parliament Rajya Sabha. He represents the BJP. Also joining us, Justice S.N. Dhingra, former Judge, Delhi High Court. We also have with us Mr. Somesh Goyal, former DGP, Himachal Pradesh. I welcome all of you on Sunset TV and thank you so much for joining us. And we also have young and vibrant audience in our studio. And let's begin this program with the Member of Parliament on our panel today, Mr. Sinha. Let me begin the program with you. Let's analyze the impact of the Act. Now we know that we had the Parent Act in 1967. We also had the Amendment Act in 2019, empowering the government to designate individuals as terrorists. So how do you analyze the impact of the Act?
You know, when this law was framed in 1967, the ecosystem in the world then and now has changed.
Yes.
In the change context and content of crime, this amendment was required. There are three important things here. Now, the disruption is not from outside. The agents from out, they use the tools inside a country to disrupt the law and order, to disrupt the civil society, to disrupt the constitutional governance. Secondly, the terrorism has not just like bombing or hostage the people. It has manifold dimensions. This dimension is also related to the financial crime. This dimension is also related to communal harmony, caste harmony. So this dimension has been kept in the mind. Third important thing is that any liberal democracy cannot function unless until there is a stability in the society. Stability comes from not law, from the order. Law and order. The students of law must be knowing if you have a law but there is no order, a judge can't give the judgment because there is no order, he can be killed. Police cannot implement if there is no order. So order is most important thing in the society. So this act is basically intended to maintain the order. We have a law but no order. So to maintain the law and order, this act is required. Lastly, when this act was framed in 1967, the intention of the government was to maintain the integrity and sovereignty of the country.
Right.
To maintain integrity and sovereignty of the country, there are certain restrictions imposed on individuals, which is required. Although we don't require in a liberal democratic society, but we don't live in ideal society. To achieve the idealism, to achieve the ideal society, we have framed this law. Therefore, this amendment was required. We have done it, and it has successful because last point.
Yes, sir.
2015 to 2019, the number of people arrested under this act is increased 72%.
Right, right, absolutely, sir. But there is a concern on conviction. I'll come back to you on that. But Justice Dhingra, let's talk about the concerns expressed about this act. There are a lot of voices that say that this act gives government the unbridled or vague powers. Your thoughts on that versus the liberty that has been guaranteed by the Constitution?
See, people are considering liberty more as lessons. Liberty should never be understood as lessons to do anything.
Very valid.
If you have liberty to protest, to raise your voice, but you cannot extend this liberty to block the highways, to burn the vehicles, to damage the properties. And if this liberty is extended to that extent that you have right to do violence, you have right to block highways, you have right to block for months together artillery ways of any city, then this is not liberty. This is lessons which you have given to yourself to abuse the liberty. So, as far as act is concerned, see, the government in all acts has powers as defined in the act. The powers are defined by the parliament, and at the time when act is enacted, they are debated. And once they are debated, thrashed out, then only act is passed. Same way our constitution was also passed. There was a constitutional assembly which thrashed each and every article and then considered for months, you see, several meetings,
Right.
debated, and thereafter each article was okayed. Now, as far as abuse is concerned, even constitution can be abused.
Anything can be abused. Yes,
Thing
sir.
can be abused.
Yes.
Act can be abused.
Yes.
So when a law is abused, that doesn't mean that law is wrong.
Right.
That means the person using the law is wrong. You have to change that person. If police is abusing something, it means you have not given proper training to the police, that how to use it, how to properly apply it. You are having a knife in the kitchen, which is meant for
Cutting your apples.
cutting your apple.
Yes.
And if you see, cut your hand by not properly using it, then there's, deficiency in your training.
Absolutely. It's a very, very valid point there. Mr. Goyal, I'll take that concern to you. As Sir says, effective implementation comes from the fact when it is implemented in letter and spirit and there's no callous misuse. But training is very important as far as the investigative agencies or enforcing agencies are concerned. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I'm fully aware of the concerns of people about this act and a lot of talk about abuse of this act.
Yes.
You know, when the act, what Mr. Sinha said, I'll amplify a bit more on that. That secessionism was also one of the factors, and individuals have also been brought into this.
Right.
Right. The reason is that once a terrorist organization is banned, what happens to the individuals? That gap has been filled. There are ideologues. Today, terrorism is not something you pull out a gun, kill one and disappear. They run like a corporate house,
Right.
like a university, like a business organization, a government office. They have their mission and vision statement. You ban Jaish-e-Mohammed. What happens to the OGR, the overground workers and the underground workers that have been associated with it? How do you take action against those? You know, that is the concern. And I would also like to share that if you look at the statistics don't lie. In India, around 61 lakh cases are registered every year in
Yes.
2021.
Yes, sir.
1.25 arrests, around 75 lakh people are arrested. You know what is the number of people arrested in 2021 under UAPA? Just 849.
Right.
Total number of cases, out of those 61 lakhs, the number is just 814.
Right.
And from 2019 to 21, there has been a 30% decline
Yes.
in the use of this act.
Right.
So I understand in the social media and in the media, just because few people who were considered ideologues of a particular ideology, which was inimical to the growth of this country,
Right, sir.
they were arrested and they had people and bodies to support them. That's why the act was considered as being misused. But what do you do if you want to develop a strong India? Will you like any individual and organization to dismember the country?
Of course not, sir.
So that is where
Right.
our take is that, as Justice said, that there could be some misuse, then they are subject to judicial review,
Right.
scrutiny.
Right.
So there are checks and balances.
Absolutely.
Let's wait for the judicial verdicts than running into media trials.
Nonetheless, what Justice Dhingra said, that training is very important. And Mr. Sinha, before I take the questions from our audience, I'd like to understand, how do we improve the conviction rate under the law?
You know, conviction rate under the law is very, very good. It is 91%, that is a global standard. But what is more important, because I am coming to that earlier question you raised,
Yes, sir.
both of the panelists, the concern. In a liberal democracy, there is a right of every individual to live. But when their existence is under threat, you feel threatened. And the terrorist threat is not organized threat. War is organized. You know the war is coming. Where is war front? Where can be bombing expected? But in terrorism, we don't know. This is unexpected. There can be in metro, there can on train, in market, in temple, or in mosque. So this uncertainty can be removed only when the state sometimes act as a hard state. And I think the conviction rate is very good. When the willpower of the rulers is for the unity, integrity, and the stability of the society, then naturally the law is powerful. When there is no willpower, the same law becomes ineffectual.
Absolutely, sir. And as you said, that nothing is more important than sovereignty and integrity of our nation. On that note, let's take some questions from our audience. Please go ahead.
Like once on a time we can ignore fundamental rights and duties, but then in the case of terrorism, but then what about the human rights infringement? Like we have seen, like there is a human rights infringement in many cases since 2019.
So you've been in the police. I think you should answer that question.
Thank you for that question. It's a very interesting question. Now, the human rights, we as policemen who have been in the forefront of terrorism, who have fought with them and braved bullets from them, survived. Fortunately, I'm here. I could have gone when I was a young officer. But, you know, whose human rights are we talking? Human rights, the violation of human rights, when you are engaged in a gunfire battle with a terrorist, the bullet does not respect your human rights.
Absolutely.
Right. I would say, once arrested, if their human rights are violated or the terms of arrest have been violated, then I would say the police is in the wrong. But if you question merely arresting a person, and if these people are incarcerated by the order of a court, are we suspecting the courts of this country? No police action is complete by itself. It has to be backed by the ruling, by a judicial order.
Yes, sir.
Now, what are we talking about? Human rights have to be, there should not be a third degree, there should not be wanton killings, there should not be fake encounters. Absolutely fine. If something is done amiss out of the due process, yes, action needs to be taken. But as I told you, out of about 70 lakh arrests, if only 9 people are arrested under UAPA, nearly 300 in the state of Jammu and Kashmir itself, then what has happened to rest of our countrymen? Nobody is bothering them.
And I've often heard enforcing agencies say that, what about our human rights as citizens, as police, as army? So I think that is another valid argument. Yes, sir, please go ahead. Please
you
go
know,
ahead.
the term and concept of human right is most abused by those people who are protecting in a one way or other way the activities of terrorism.
Absolutely.
And terrorism. I'm giving an example of that. Those who have been killed in Kashmir, there was no question of human rights. But those who were suspected killing, if they are arrested, the question of human rights. And I'm quoting one general, Communalism Combat. It was edited on by Javed and Tista Sitalwad. It wrote about Kasab, who was a proven killer. Still, the Indian government had given the opportunity for the judicial services he was provided. The general wrote, it is extreme of the human rights, we are making a campaign to save Kasab. Now, these kind of things, by propaganda that human rights are being violated, this is the source of propaganda we don't know. The agents may be here or may be innocent while they are saying that, suppose some university students say that human rights violated. He or she may be innocent, but you don't know the invisible source from where such propaganda is coming to you and polluting the atmosphere where the law should become ineffectual, rulers should become ineffective by guilt conscience. This is a process to create a guilt conscience in the minds of the police, army and the rulers.
Yes, Justice Dhingra, please go ahead.
Since you have raised the issue of human rights, see, in 1990s, when in Kashmir, some terrorists were holed up in a religious place. Police army was operating, and terrorists were being, they had been surrounded and they had no way to come out. Their ammunition was also going out. Government had stopped, their electricity, water and food supply.
Yes, yes.
See, some organization, I don't know which, so-called human rights organization, went to High Court. And some High Court judges, so-called human rights activists, so they ordered that a particular kind of food, biryani with ghost, should be supplied to these terrorists to respect their human rights. See, you have to understand the difference between rights of the persons who are actually humans and those who are not humans.
Yes.
Can you say that the terrorist who is out to kill, and they have, damaged, killed involuntarily hundreds of people. In Kashmir, at least thousands and thousands of Kashmiris, lakhs of Kashmiris were killed.
Very sad.
And Kashmir was washed out of Kashmiri Pandits. These terrorists were provided at the order of the court biryani, water, electricity. So this is the kind of human rights organizations which are functioning in India. See, they are funded from abroad. No country wants to see this country as a strong country.
Right, sir. Right. Absolutely.
And that is why these organizations have mushroomed. You are talking of human rights of those persons who are not human, who don't consider themselves as human.
Who are absolutely bludgeoning our rights as humans.
Yes.
Let's take another question.
My question to you is that UAPA is also known as anti-terrorism law. Do you think it justifies the title?
1997, TADA was enacted. TADA was anti-terrorism law. Then TADA, worked for about 5 years. Then there was attack on Parliament in 2001. The need for another terrorist law was felt, and an ordinance was brought for protecting Indians from terrorists. At that time, an ordinance was brought, POTO, and thereafter it was converted into POTA Act. Did not extend this act, and in fact amended UAPA.
Yes, sir.
And included all the provisions of terrorism, terrorist activities under this act.
Right, sir.
So the government and the society felt the need. The parliament amended this act. So the terrorism provisions are there in this act.
Rest of the crime, except terrorism, our laws are capable to handle them, and they are being handled by the police judiciary. Terrorism has a special category, a special way to functioning. a special way to attack the society. They are the disguised elements. Their postal address nobody knows. Their relationship is not domestic. Their relationship is international. Therefore, this law is basically intended to deter the terrorism, flush out the terrorists. That's why it is popularly known as Anti-Terrorist Act.
Yes, sir.
And its impact is basically on the incidences of terrorism in the country. And we know after 2014, the decline of the terrorist activities in this country and for internal security is concerned, just go before 2014. The attack, the bombing in the temples or attack or in the market, there is a complete uncertainty prevailing. After 2014, when the government, the law and the law agencies became active without any guilt conscience, and the credit goes to Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, not only on the front of economic growth, not on the front of the international ramification of India, but also the internal security. That's why the FDI is coming larger number. If there is no law and order, there is no security, no FDI will come. Why not FDI is going to Pakistan? That's why this terminology is very justified
Right.
and apt.
Right.
May
Let's
I
take
just
another.
add a small?
Yes, Mr. Goyal.
Just
Yes, sir.
a small thing. Why it is called an anti-terror law is, if you go through the BEAR Act, it refers to the United Nations Security Council's more than half a dozen resolutions,
Right.
wherein UNSC has directed states to enact legislation against terror. And most of the countries in the world, including the US, which has almost a dozen legislations against different types of terror, it's a special act like NDPS, dowry prohibition, or domestic violence act.
Right, sir.
Special needs, special act.
I just have time for last two questions and we'll take them together. Yes, please go ahead.
Do you feel UAPA is destroying democracy in India?
After the 1967, you have amendment the 5 times till now this, this bill. So do you think that sometime right people will get the punish under this law?
Sir, we are discussing Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, but do you not think that definition of this unlawful has to be corrected or more defined? Because from last few years, we are seeing many false arrests under UAPA.
Mr. Sinha, we need more clarity. That's what the young
Now, first
student
I'm coming
says.
to democracy. That very important question, does it harm to democracy? You know, in a democratic society, the core of democracy is the freedom of speech, freedom of activities. But I'm giving example when I came Delhi and I wanted to meet late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, she was the Prime Minister. I reached to her residence without any deterrence from the police. There was a security guard, I reached to her reception. And I was in first in Delhi University. After the terrorist attack, after she was assassinated, the security increased. After the attack on Parliament, security increased.
Yes.
These are the unlawful activities. These are the terrorists who create situation in decline in democratic freedom, decline in your freedom of movement.
Right,
These are they. You just see the United States after the attack. You just see in Israel after Palestinian fight. So you have to take a holistic approach. That when the government is safeguarding the freedom of speech and freedom of movement of the millions of the people, and for the few people, their freedom of speech and freedom of movement, as just rightly said, and that they are not human. They are planning to create a disintegration in the country.
Right.
Their religious motive, their political motive, their economic motive. Therefore, I consider that you may be right that unlawful should be redefined. But whatsoever you define, those who are doing unlawful activity, this is natural. When there is some activity, 5 people will be arrested.
Right.
5 people will be arrested because the security agency don't know which person had done. After interrogation, you will come to the conclusion. They may be abandoned from the court. They may be left out. But I think that the government is serious about the internal security. That is the core issue of since 2014. That internal security must be maintained at any cost. Our citizens' freedom, citizens' security, citizens' existence is a prime
Right.
priority of the government of India after 2014, which is very visible now.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sinha, Justice Dhingra, and Mr. Goel. Well, viewers, that's all we could pack for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sunset TV. Goodbye from my side for now.